of drums and percussion, Barry Keane. Gotta say drums and percussion because he's such an innovator. There's so many things that Barry does. Very tasty. He sneaks stuff in. And if you watch him, you think, wow, I didn't hear that before, and this is great. I mean, having Barry in the band has been such a treat for such a long time. Do you know that Barry Keane is the only drummer who has ever toured with Gordon Lightfoot? As an aside to that, Andy came up to me about 3 months ago. He said, there's this guy down in Florida. He said he played the drums in Gord's band. I said, he's lying. Barry Keane's the only one who ever toured with Gord. As a matter of fact, thinking back to Lake Tahoe, wow, we had, we don't talk about this much, but do you remember who else was on the stage with us in Lake Tahoe, Barry? At the rehearsal, in the afternoon.
Yes, at the rehearsal we had the famous arranger Nick DeCaro from LA. He had written charts for Randy Newman and just a Bette Midler, a whole bunch of people, a lot of hit records. And also, the casino had hired an orchestra to play with us. Well, how did that turn out, Rick?
That was a little scary.
I mean, for me personally, like I said before in our Q&A, I didn't know very many Gordon Lightfoot songs, and Nick DeCaro had the orchestra, and he brought all the charts. He had written the charts for Carefree Highway and you know, all those great tunes.
You could read my mind.
Read my mind, there you go. And Nick was a fabulous guy, nice guy. So Gord would not announce what song we were playing. Nick didn't know what song was coming up, and he had to cue the orchestra so they could get their charts together. Nick would come to me, because I was furthest back, closest to the orchestra. Nick would tap me on the shoulder and say, "What song is this?" And I'd say, "I don't know." And then finally, when Nick figured out what song it was, you could hear the orchestra. You could hear all the charts and all the music stands. Everybody panicked to find the song. And sure enough, as soon as they figured out what song it was, Gord would stop. And then he'd play another song. And it would be, "What song is this?" "Nick, I don't know." And the whole process went on that whole afternoon. Right, Rick?
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go. Okay, for any folks who were here last night, you heard I told a story about our experience at doing the Midnight Special in LA, and I promised that today I would talk about the time we flew, all of us flew, to do a comedy show that was live in New York. And of course, I'm talking about, there's been a lot of publicity recently about the 50th year anniversary of Saturday Night Live. So shortly after we had done Midnight Special, and I was expecting, being in LA, basically, it was Burbank, but I thought it was going to be very laid back. Remember, Rick, thinking this is going to be so much fun, it's going to be laid back. Everybody was so uptight out there. And I thought, in a few weeks, we're going to New York to do a comedy show. I mean, I can't imagine the tension, what that's going to be like. But I got to tell you, it was so relaxed. And little did we know, the cast that we were going to be working with was the original cast. And of course, that was Chevy Chase, John Belushi, Jane Curtin, and interspersed was quite a Canadian connection. The brains of the outfit, the producer, Lorne Michaels, was from Toronto. The band leader, Howard Shore, who had worked with Lorne in Toronto, and Lorne took Howard to New York, and Howard would go on to win Oscars. He won Grammy Awards. He wrote the score for Silence of the Lambs, Lord of the Flies, just dozens of these great movies. And his piano player had been in the cast of Godspell in Toronto, along with Gilda Radner. And that, of course, was the man who would go on to be David Letterman's sidekick, Paul Chamber. So there was quite a Canadian connection, and I mean, they were just great to us. I remember, do you remember when Chevy Chase came to the dressing room? And there was a Stanford t-shirt he wore all the time on the show. He had a Stanford t-shirt on, and he had rolled up the front of it, holding a whole bunch of beers, cans of beer for us. He came in the dressing room, gave us beer, and just hung out with us. But who knew at the time? I'd never heard of him. Who knew he would go on to be who he was? We had, I think, 2 days of rehearsal, hanging out with these great, funny folks. And then it got to be show day. Okay. And folks, this really is, when they say live from New York, it is live from New York. So there's a little bit of tension now on the day. It was so exciting. You know who showed up to say hello was an old background singer from Toronto that we knew, named Beverly D'Angelo. And if that name doesn't mean anything to you, that was Ellen Griswold from the National Lampoon. She came by to say hello. They had asked us if anybody would like to take part in, they were going to have like a red carpet kind of a thing, an entry for the coming into the show for the host, Buck Henry and Lorne Michaels. And they needed people to line either side of the red carpet. So I said, yeah, I'm in, I'll go. I'm standing there and I'm trying to take in this whole great scene, waiting for Buck Henry and Lorne Michaels to walk down the red carpet. And there's a guy beside me. Hi, how are you? Yeah, I'm good, thanks, buddy. I'm trying to take care of over here. Are you from New York? No, I'm from Canada. And I'm just, trying not to pay any attention to this guy. Are you a friend of Lorne's? So at this point now, and I'm kind of feeling like, I'm here with Gordon Lightfoot, so I said, well, I'm Gordon Lightfoot's drummer. I'm Barry Keane, and I turned and said, and you are? It was Paul Simon. Paul Simon was a good friend of Lorne Michaels, and he came to a lot of the shows, but yeah, so I'm standing beside Paul Simon, this guy that was bugging me, right? Yeah, no, that's true. So anyway, we get to our portion of the show. We all come out of the dressing room. We're all on stage. Well, almost all of us. There was one member missing. And now we're into the comedy bit before our segment. Gord came back to me and said, where's Rick? I said, I don't know. We had seen Rick in the dressing room, and we thought all of us had come out onto stage. And now, and Gord's getting a little concerned, we're all kind of like, where is Rick? And it was the comedy bit, I think it was Del Stater's Family Toad Ranch with Dan Aykroyd. They finish. Dan Aykroyd finishes, and Buck Henry said, okay, that was good. Now here's something else that's good. From Canada, Gordon Lightfoot, and there's still no Rick Haynes. So, Rick, would you like to tell the folks where the heck you were?
Well, yeah, I was in the dressing room with my feet up, watching the monitor, watching all these routines that we'd seen go through the afternoon rehearsal, the late afternoon rehearsal. The way they did it was they brought an audience in for the rehearsal, okay? And then after the rehearsal, that audience had to leave, and then the audience came in for the show. Well, what they didn't tell us was the rehearsal that the first audience saw was about 2 hours long. And if you ever watch SNL, it's a 90-minute show. So what they did was after the rehearsal, the writers would all get their heads together and they would cut the routines that didn't go over really well with the rehearsal audience. So they tightened up the show. There was supposed to be 2 segments after the Del State or Dan Aykroyd thing, and I was sitting there waiting for those 2 segments to come up. And when I saw Buck Henry introduce us, I ran running down the hall. You seen the hall? And I ran right under the camera shot, jumped on stage, and I made the start of the song.
Anybody watching the show wouldn't have known any of that had happened. You did such a great job. Let's hear it for Rick Haynes, folks. And that was our experience with Saturday Night Live. Thank you.